Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you're listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. Just the Plate is a short segment where chefs describe a dish or a recipe that is meaningful to them. Last week, you heard from Chef Stephanie Izard. She's the chef partner of Girl and the Goat in Chicago, as well as Little Goat, Duck Duck Goat, Cabra, forthcoming Girl and the Goat LA, and on and on and on. She's a Bravo Top Chef winner. She's a James Beard Award winner, a Food and Wine Magazine Best New Chef winner, a Food Network Iron Chef winner. She's a winner. If you missed last week's episode, please be sure to check that out. But for now, Steph is going to talk us through and make you drool and crave the Lomo Saltado. This is a traditional dish of Peru. It's usually made with beef tenderloin and French fries, actually. It has a soy-based sauce. It's kind of a stir-fry dish. It has some Latin influence, some Asian influence. It's a delicious dish, but she does her own take at one of her newer restaurants called Cabra in Chicago. She uses some skirt steak and she does her own homemade tots, if you will, but she talks us through that and why she chooses what she chooses. It's a pretty interesting episode. I literally think I may have been drooling as she was talking to me about this. So if you haven't checked out Cabra, please be sure to do that. I think you'll enjoy it next time you're in Chicago, or if you're in Chicago. Anyhow, I am going to stop talking. This is Just the Plate. All right, so for this Just the Plate episode, I usually just fork it over to the chef, but we actually have two more questions that I'm surprising you with in the segment called What Would Jamie Bissonnette Ask Stephanie Izard?
I was going to say, Jamie only asked one question, yeah.
So the first one is, if she had to be one ingredient in a dish, what would it be?
I mean, of course I would be the fish sauce.
In the next question, he asks, would she rather eat one thing for the rest of her life or only be able to cook one dish for the rest of her life? That's a hard question.
That is a hard question. I guess only be able to cook one dish for the rest of my life because I'm not cooking it for me, right?
Yeah.
I just cook that for everybody else and I can go eat whatever I want.
There you go.
That's fine. That's easy.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. That
Okay.
makes me seem like I don't care that much about cooking, but I just care more about eating.
Right. All right. So just the plate.
Okay. So the dish I'm going to talk through is our skirt saltado at Cabra because we're sitting here at Cabra and it's just super tasty and something you can definitely execute at home or in the kitchen here. And when we're in Peru, you see Lomo Saltado on like every menu everywhere. Oh, I just heard myself say it with a really awesome accent too. So we tried to try as many versions of it as we could. And it's a very simple dish. I mean, Lomo Saltado, it's beef, usually tenderloin, that's marinated in a very soy heavy dish. It's kind of showing their Chinese influence in the cooking there. A very soy heavy marinade. There's always onions and peppers. There's usually rice. We don't do it with rice, but you could. We just don't have like a rice steamer that we have on the line here. And then some sort of potato. But it's all about the gravy, really. And it's usually like French fries, I guess, when you have it in Peru. So we ordered at a bunch of different places, I guess thinking that there'd be a ton of different interpretation. And there somewhat is, but I think it's just about sticking to the classic. And so the one we do here, I think, is probably sticks to the classic a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know if the Peruvian people that come eat here think so or not, because we don't have the rice. So we take skirt steak just because I think it has a lot more flavor than beef tenderloin. I don't know why beef tenderloin gets all the action. It's like the least flavorful cut of beef that you can possibly get because there's no fat all through it, whereas skirt steak has tons of fat on it. And when we trim it, we just kind of take the silver skin off or anything like that, but we like to leave as much fat on as possible because it just kind of caramelizes on the grill and it's so yummy. So we take a little portion of skirt steak, we marinate it. The marinade that we make is really strong. You only need to marinate it for a couple of minutes. It's not like a sit in the fridge in this marinade thing. It's made out of soy. We use tamari to just keep it. Well, I guess it's not gluten-free because we use sweet soy also, but soy or tamari. We use sweet soy, the ABC sweet soy, which is just, it almost tastes like molasses made out of soy sauce. Lots of black pepper and garlic. And some sugar, and it just makes this really simple marinade. I actually made up this marinade years ago when I was working on a shaking beef, a Vietnamese dish, and it was just a recipe that I had. And when we started working on the Lomo Saltado, I don't know why that popped into my brain, just because it was very soy-based. And so we took that and sort of like morphed it around a little bit to fit this dish. So we put it on the skirt steak, let it marinate for just a couple of minutes. throw it on the grill. You can definitely do it in a pan, but on a grill, you're going to get that nice sort of char, which is awesome. So put it on the grill while it's grilling. You take a pan. You're going to saute a little bit of sweet onions. I like to use sweet onions just because they, by the name, are nice and sweet and they're not too pungent. So you start them in a pan, probably, like a half a cup worth per portion. Start sauteing those on high to start, then turn it down. You don't necessarily want to caramelize them. You just want to let them be nice and tender. So start off by putting a little bit of salt on them, just enough to let them release their juices so they don't overly caramelize. Then we take some slices of red peppers that we've actually thrown on the grill for just a minute to get a little bit of char. We throw those in there. We take some nice big hunks of tomato and put those in the pan and saute them and let them kind of cook down enough till they're really nice and tender and almost going to add to the sauce. Then we pre-measure, just to make sure it's always exactly the same, the amount of sauce and butter that we then put into the pan. And you do it over medium-low heat. So you're taking probably like 3 tablespoons of sauce and a tablespoon of butter and just like lightly swirling it around the pan so the butter comes together with the soy and makes it very palatable. If you take that sauce or the marinade and you just kind of drink it on its own, it's going to be real intense and you're going to be really thirsty. But the butter helps make it just super delicious. And if you can't have butter, then we put mayonnaise is our trick for people that can't have butter. We just put a tiny bit of mayonnaise and swirl that in there because there's a lot of mayonnaise in Peruvian cooking, and it makes a really great sauce also, and it also makes it a little bit more palatable. So that turns into this nice little pan sauce. You're kind of reducing it down just enough to be nappe, I guess, to call back to my culinary school roots. Slice the skirt steak. You want to cook it. I like skirt steak medium. Some people go a little too rare and then it's kind of chewy. Make sure you cut it against the grain. My biggest pet peeve with skirt steak is going places that cut it with the grain. It's so chewy. Cut it against the grain. It's nice and medium. You're just going to toss in the sauce really quick. Pour the whole thing into your serving platter. Over the top, we take some cherry tomatoes that we've just really quickly blistered in the oven. We toss them in a little bit of soy, some balsamic vinegar, and olive oil. And cook them high heat so they just pop open, pull them out of the oven, sprinkle some of those over the top. And then instead of doing French fries, we make these fresh tater tots that we put over the top. We just take, we have all these different potatoes that we use in all of the restaurants. One of my sous chefs said we should stop using so many different potatoes and cross-utilize. I was like, well, you just can't make French fries out of an Idaho. You just can't make French fries out of this. You can't make hash browns out of this. So chipperbecks are what we use for our tater tots. It's a potato that somebody invented and called chipperbeck because it's really great for chips or French fries or anything. It just fries really well. So we boil those, mash them into like a sheet tray. So it's just like this, only salt in it. You're not putting anything, any cream, any butter, anything like that, just potato kind of smashed in. Cut it into little cubes and you can just deep fry them just like that and it turns into these like real simple tater tots. So we sprinkle some of those over the top, a little bit of cilantro and scallions. And that's it. It's super delicious.
Yum.
Yum. And then you can like swirl the tater tots around in the sauce.
I've had it, but I want it again now.
It's
like
good.
Now that I've heard
it's
that.
It's so savory. And you have to, you got to put the butter in there or the mayonnaise or something just to balance it a little bit. And it's definitely, it's sodium flavored, full, heavy with a lot of soy sauce happening, but so delicious.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Find more on Chef Stephanie Izard by Googling Stephanie Izard. Kidding. Find her at stephanieizard.com. This episode was produced by myself along with Ian Cohen and Joel Yeaton. Find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to beyondtheplatepodcast.com. We are on Twitter at BT Plate Podcast and Facebook. Please rate and or review and subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Well, you know that because you're listening. Anyhow, thank you for listening to Just a Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.